All right, guys. I guess let's get rocking and rolling here. Gonna get it started a little bit early. We have quite a bit to try and squeeze into a short session here. Today we're going to be talking about sales process and the actual presentation and closing in-house. All right. So just out of curiosity, how many people here on the call today are doing closes with customers, B2C, kitchen table stuff? Maybe just throw a one in the chat for me. Okay. One or two in here. I see a few other faces. I know that we are. Cool. And how many of you guys here actually track your closing ratios? Actually track and are actively trying to improve them? Okay. Right on. Okay. So what I'm going to do is basically I'm going to go through the framework that we use, and that has been the tool that I've used for teaching many sales reps how to close sales consistently. Um,
1 second.
process. Oh, 1 second. I get everybody to mute if you don't mind. Hold on.
Yeah,
Okay. We got everybody muted. Okay. Can you guys see my screen okay? You guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Right on. So the sales process that I'm going to show you guys today is very basic and straightforward. I mean, sales and overall doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, most of us could benefit from simplifying our sales process. I find that most contractors are generally poor in this category without formal training. And to be honest with you, sales is a skill, right? It's a skill and it's a muscle. It's something that we have to continuously work at to be very good at it. All right. Now, for most contractors, most of them that I talk to have a little bit of anxiety around sales. So hopefully today we can kind of break it down in a way that becomes a little bit more digestible and ultimately leads you to some more success with your sales process or building a sales process to have an actual closer come in and run for you. But again, in terms of hiring a sales rep, if you were to go out and get a sales rep and you have no sort of way for that person to sell your offer, what ends up happening? What do you think ends up happening?
Gets fired.
Well, you do tend to go through sales reps much quicker. But ultimately, again, you're setting that person up for failure. And the other thing that begins to happen is you lose profitability, lots of mistakes get made. This is one of the most critical roles within your business as far as I'm concerned. And owners that aren't comfortable doing sales or don't, enjoy it, doesn't give them energy, you still have to invest in your process. You have to invest in the steps and how the offer gets presented and how your customer is supposed to feel during the sales process. All right. A good closer can come in and close a deal. All right. But we have to give them the framework that matches and aligns with our brand. All right. Very important. And it's always worth your time and effort to invest in your sales and sales training and improving sales. So what's success look like? There's some patterns to success, all right? Especially when it comes to sales. Sales is muscle memory. That's really what it is. When somebody gets really confident at building an offer or selling an offer, all right, that's where we see ratios get into the 40-50%. They're totally confident. They have 100%, grip on what it is that you guys are closing on and how they actually deliver value to your customers. So salespeople often focus on negativity from my experience, right? Sort of the black dot rather than the positives, the white area. They reflect on daily positives, waking up, having a roof over your head, having clean water, etc. Right? We want to make sure that we have the right mindset when we're going into sales, and that even if you're managing salespeople, that you know how to call out certain behaviors and certain things that you're hearing. And again, these are all patterns that you see on highly successful sales teams, and I've seen in very highly successful salespeople. They all have these same qualities that come with it, right? So they avoid dwelling on missed opportunities, and they focus success on reinforcing positive behaviors. And again, they create a sales muscle. One thing about successful salespeople is that they're always practicing and getting better. All right. Your education and your learning never stops as a salesperson, or nor it really shouldn't. All right. The best closers that I know, again, are probably the most curious, and they're constantly, reading, they're constantly training, role playing. And again, it's to keep those muscles sharp, right? Just like going to the gym. I mean, you can't just go to the gym once and get results. It's sustained, consistency over time. Same thing with sales, right? Um, they practice for success. They're documenting, everything that they're doing. They're usually, again, if you have a well established sales program in your company, or you're looking to scale your business, you should have a sales playbook. All right. We help with these here at the Contractor AI. I'm a big fan of it, but ultimately the way you want to think about it is your obligation as the employer, or as the offer, is to make sure that when new salespeople come in, or you're handing sales off, that you're handing off all the secrets. You're handing off all the angles and all of the important information that they require to actually persuade someone to close on a deal, right? Same with yourself. Don't think that if you all the information is in your head, that's going to be useful and practical for you, right? You should have a sales playbook. I, to this day, have a book of objections that I receive. All right, it's a rather long one, but I've always written down all the objections that I've gotten over the years, and often will go back and reflect on how I was able to resolve them. A big part of the playbook that I've written for J. Carter Roofing includes those objections. All right, it includes those experiences that I've had. So good salespeople are always trying to sharpen those skills. They're always practicing. To give you an idea of this, I have a sales coach. I do role plays. All right. I'm hardly in sales as much as I used to be, but I still keep my skills sharp, right? And I still feel, again, that it's something that once you start, that you should never stop, because there's really no better skill, in my opinion, than the sales skill, and it really does help to grow your business rapidly. And again, this all comes back down to repetition, right? The more and more we practice, the more and more we go through our sales process, the more confident and comfortable we become. And ultimately, this is what's going to lead to more success on your sales rate. So to put this in perspective, if everyone can imagine here for a second that you increased your sales in the new year 2025, all right, by 20%. How different would the outcome of 2025 be versus 2020 or 24, right? Just imagine that for a second. If you did nothing else, changed nothing else in your business, and you were able to improve your sales by 25%, where would that leave you? Okay. And then the second part to this, and thank you, Siavash, because we had this conversation this week, but imagine selling the same product or service that you guys are offering, but we're able to get a 20% higher margin. Imagine that. How different would the outcome of of 2025 be? Okay. So a lot of times, what I try to explain is that companies that have strong sales process and sales people, all right, and are dedicated to improving, often sell for a much higher margin. The reason why is it's simple numbers. Okay. If you're a actual closer, my definition of a closer is somebody that takes somebody from an absolute no to a yes. Okay. They start at no. They start at the objection. Okay. That's where they go to work. That's their office. Okay. That's where they live. And they can do that at a very predictable, consistent rate, whether that be 40, whether that be 50, 30, whatever it is. Okay. Those people do the same thing day in and day out. All right. Now, if everybody here, or if anybody here identifies themselves as a salesperson, all right, I want you to ask yourself the question, are you a closer or are you a salesperson? Because a salesperson, in my definition, all right, they stop at no. They take the objection and assume that that's the reality, or they fail to do any number of the things that are involved in actually being great at sales. Okay. And often what I seem to see is in most contracting businesses, this is the source of most of the pain. Okay. If we learn to close at a higher consistency and at a higher margin, most of you would, you would have a totally different looking business. All right. You would have a different perspective of business altogether. I promise you. All right. The things that were tough before would become very easy. Okay. So again, we don't ever want to underestimate the power of getting better in this area consistently and constantly. All right. And for the new coming year, I assure you, almost everybody in this call could probably improve their sales at minimum 10% and go as high as 30%. And without changing anything else in the business, just getting better at closing. Period. Full stop. Okay. So hopefully this is beneficial for you. Um, in order to be great at sales, we have to actually have steps. We have to have a structure that allows us to play within some lines. Okay. And especially when you're selling in home or you're selling B2B, where you're actually meeting face to face with someone, it's so important that you have a game plan. You're going in with a strategy to keep your customer engaged and not to make common mistakes. All right. So first of all, step one is actually being prepared for good leads. All right. You want to focus on the quality leads, maximize your time and efforts. I see too many salespeople and contractors chasing around leads that aren't really worth their time. And usually this has a lot to do with pricing, but they're not prepared to actually close the higher level leads. And when they do come, they're not focusing on those ones that have the greatest opportunity to close. They're focusing on all of them. All right. Like as if they're an assembly line, and not all sales are equal. All right. So we need to, to have killer instincts, you have to be able to identify and qualify a sales opportunity fast. Okay. The key here is speed. All right. And how do we do that? We need to research. You need to understand what your prospects' needs are and understand where their pain points are. And good salespeople research their customers. I do it to this day. Most of you that are in this program, I checked you out on Facebook. I looked at your company pages. I decided before we even had a call whether I would be willing to work with you or not. Right. So again, coming into it, understanding information of what your client's needs are, that's the first step. Never go into a call unprepared. All right. Never go into a call not prepared to sell. Okay. Guys that are doing 2-step, 3-step quotes, give that shit up. Stop doing that. That's not useful. All right. Very few situations where where it creates, success long term and results, in my opinion. Step two, an introduction. So you want to create a very strong first impression. With energy, confidence, professionalism, you want to build rapport and set a positive tone for the conversation. So let me give you a simple example of introduction. When you park at somebody's property, we don't park in the driveway. All right, we don't block off the driveway. We park out front of the house. Our guys are coming in in golf shirts and uniformed, and they identify themselves very quickly. They stand to the left side of the door. They're not blocking the homeowner. And especially, again, little subtle things like this out of respect, especially if you're selling to a female. All right, we're going to try to reduce any resistance or any concern that they have about who you are. You're going to identify yourself immediately at the door, but you're going to stand to the left so we're not so threatening. Okay, that's a good example of first impression. Okay, you're going to come prepared, with whatever inspection tools that you need. All right, and you're going to dress to impress. Okay, clean, shaven, nothing that is that makes you look like a contractor. All right, we don't show up in our ripped jeans and ripped t-shirts. Like that's just not appropriate, and especially if you're going to sell at the higher end. All right, we have to go in showing a great deal of respect, no matter who the lead is. All right. Step three, after you've began that introduction, and again, we're going to talk about some of the more finer details of that, but we need to complete a needs analysis survey. Okay. And this goes for every type of sale there is. All right. We have to actually ask open-ended questions. We have to uncover the prospect's challenges and their priorities. We have to listen actively and understand the pain points fully. All right. Now, this is an actual process, and I'm going to actually share the needs analysis survey with this presentation as well that we do. Okay. And we're going through a list of questions with the prospect. We're figuring out exactly why they're getting, if it's a roof, if it's an HVAC system, we have to understand what is the motivation. All right. We have to understand like what the problems are that they had, right? What their fears are. Why did they call us and not, the other guy? Like there's a whole bunch of things that we can ask in open-ended questions, and we'll discuss those in a minute, that are going to open up that prospect and make the presentation about them. Okay. Step 4, we need to measure and inspect. So we are going to conduct a detailed assessment, gather necessary data. Now, this is in terms of the actual product or service that you offer, whether it be a roof. All right, we're going to actually complete, a roof inspection, an attic inspection. You're doing windows, you're going to inspect windows. If you're doing flooring, you get the idea. Okay. And ultimately, while we're doing this, we want to also, present our findings clearly, and build trust and transparency. Okay. So I see this a lot as well, where guys immediately start trying to pitch, their offer before they've even had these conversations with the homeowner, before they've even taken the time to really understand what it is that the homeowner is trying to solve or the business owner is trying to solve. Again, actively listening, and then they jump right into, measuring up the deal and trying to pitch it. Okay. Now, what I want you guys all to do is imagine yourself as the customer. Okay. How many of you guys have used contractors yourself? Probably all of you, right? At one point or another, right? Okay. How many of you have dealt with a really poor selling contractor that kind of does all these things? Okay. How many of you guys are these guys? Right? So again, whether you're and this is, the best way to kind of picture it is like whether you're doing the selling, right, or you're being sold to, people's emotions are involved. It doesn't matter. Okay? People's feelings are involved. All right? And the better you actually are at sales, the more emotions get involved. Okay? If you want to really suck at sales, and I think I've said this a number of times, so I hope it sounds like a broken record. If you want to suck at sales, do everything logically. Do everything, analytical. All right? Don't ask the questions. Don't, get right to business. Just give them a quote, write it down, get it, get in and out like it's just a number. Okay? Throw numbers around. If you want to really suck at sales, okay? If you want to be really powerful at sales, all right, you're going to invest in these things that I'm discussing with you today. Okay? So, step 5, we want to tell the company's story. We want to share your company's values, the history, unique selling points, all right? We want to build credibility. Now, this is an important thing. Again, whether you're selling HVAC, whether you're selling, controls, whether you're selling, it doesn't matter. All right. People still want credibility. How can they trust you? All right. And bring yourself back to the same position. When you make decisions buying just about anything, what are the key things you look for almost instinctively? Right. Do you check reviews? Do you wonder what this company is all about? Now, just as a key note of emphasis here, don't make this a very long, waited out, look at me kind of thing. This is not what that's about. This is something like exchanging insurance, making sure that you are upfront sharing reviews, giving them openly referrals, references. All right. Having a brief discussion of, how your company helps their customers. All right. Giving a little bit of history of, how long you've been around and what you do specifically. These are okay. Now, when we get into, an hour pitch about how great your company is, that's not going to go so far. So we have to really do this tastefully, and we have to really think about building trust. What are we adding and how are we building value in that prospect's eyes, right? Every word counts. Every statement counts. Okay. And we're going to get into that in a second too. All right. Now and only now do we present our product. All right. And what I have to say here about this is, when we're doing product presentations or demos, anything like that, we're past the age of having the cookie cutter presentations. If you want to use those, that's cool. All right. But really, the guys that are closing at the top of the market and the real killers out there, they have a custom tailored system. We use a product called Engage, which again allows us to very quickly change up a presentation for the prospect that we're selling to. We've listened, we understand what their needs are. All right. Now we're taking that needs analysis and we're actually, altering our presentation to speak to what's beneficial to them. All right. What they're going to value. All right. Same thing if you're doing commercial sales. You're meeting with a facility owner. Okay. Some of them, you're going to have a totally different presentation for, selling, commercial HVAC service or, maintenance programs is going to be a totally different presentation. All right. And we have to keep that in mind. And nowadays we have enough technology, enough, inside of an iPad that can absolutely wow and amaze your customers. So again, when we say product presentation, we don't want this to be like an old school pitch. I don't want you guys going out there with slide decks and an hour and a half of slide decks because that's not going to work. That's old school selling and it's ineffective. Okay, so we can talk a little bit more about this in a bit, but ultimately we have to present. We have to present our offer, right? Then we get into what we call retail closing, right? We're going to actually ask for the sales confidently while addressing, any lingering doubts. We're going to use closing techniques like the tie down and takeaways and finalize the deal. Okay. How many of you guys have gone into somebody's home or business and forgot to ask for the job? Be honest. We got anybody? Yep. All right. How many of you just forgot to ask, or the second they gave you any resistance, you did what? Okay. Right. You just packed up and left. All right. So hopefully I can help you with this. This is why documenting and getting a plan in place, because good salespeople, like I said, they expect objections. They're looking forward to that. All right. That's actually like that is the, that's the hunt and kill, right? That's the excitement that you get from sales as far as I'm concerned. That's what's in my blood. All right. Is that ultimately again, when we're being faced with a challenge of somebody being unsure of us, we get an opportunity there to reverse that objection. We get an opportunity to, persuade their opinion or to get the deal done. All right. And I can't tell you, probably most of you guys told me no, right? But yet you're here. So, I mean, at the end of the day, again, I feel like, if your offer is strong enough and you're confident enough in it, you should be able to handle those objections. You should be able to be confident about it, not take them personally, all right, but rather see them as an opportunity to, reinforce what it is that you do and how you can help your customer. All right. So we need to look at, no or the word no in a lot more positive way. All right. And again, most of us in childhood, we probably learned that saying no and getting no's was bad, right? We didn't want to, we didn't like no, but ultimately, where does saying yes all the time get you, right? So, and most people want to say yes. That's the thing, right? When they're saying no, it's not that they're saying no to you because you're not a great company, or it's not that they're saying no to you because they don't completely trust you. It could be any number one of those things, but ultimately they're saying not yet. I'm not ready yet. Maybe you can explain this, right? And just take yourself as an example. How many of you guys have given someone an objection? Probably a few today, right? We do it in every aspect of our life, right? Whether you're hiring, whether you're discussing things with staff, like all of this, like we constantly run up against objections. I mean, even dealing with your wife, how many times do you get objections? I get them all the time. I probably had 25 of them today. Almost every conversation seems like objection handling, to be honest, right? So the way I look at it again is that's only resistance. That only means that I have some better explaining to do. So now we want to move into the qualification. Okay. And again, this is, another area where most guys could benefit. Most people on this call are going to benefit from. So, has anyone ever had the situation where they had somebody say, yeah, you know what, I want to go ahead. And then we're like, great, let's sign up the contract. Let's, yeah, yeah, no problem. And then, crickets. You never hear from them again. Right? Never happened. Okay. And this is really because you didn't do the last few steps. And qualification means like confirm the prospect's ability to move forward, budget, decision making authority, right? Addressing any objections, confidently maintain the momentum, all right? Even though you've gone through some objections and they've said yes, I've had it happen many times. Yes isn't doesn't mean anything to me. What means something to me? How can I count a sale? How do you count a sale? I'll tell you.
Once I see money.
Right. Deposits, you know, the finance or the payment plans in place, They have, we've moved forward. We've answered all those major questions. We've had those uncomfortable conversations, and we've got a signature on the bottom line, right? Too many guys assume sales that they had no chance of ever getting because they got objected to and they didn't even realize it. What a waste. You have somebody all the way to the 90-yard line and you can't get them the last 10 yards because you don't have a process. You haven't recognized yet or done it enough where you realize that people will lead you all the way there. And then all of a sudden, again, you miss a couple of these key things and gone is the sale. All right. Your salespeople make the mistakes. I make the mistakes. Everyone does. All right. And it's evolving, it's changing, right? Just the way that we run our payment plans this year is not the same as we did last year. Okay. So why do we need to practice these things? How do we qualify and do a good qualification process? All right. And we're still not done. Now we're going to actually go for the major close, right? So, again, a retail close is, hey, we want to move forward with this. They're going to throw some objections at you. They're going to, you're going to have to go through the qualification. You're going to have to, again, use your techniques, and we'll talk about those. And we have been, but using good, better, best, upselling, downselling, getting budgets switched around, like getting them into a place where they're comfortable. And this is a place where we do our major close. Okay. And this is where we can present a final offer with clarity and confidence. We can use assumptive language and guide the prospect's decision. So you may notice there that I have two closes. I have two areas where I'm doing closes because I don't ever stop at just the yes. I can't. All right. Because in our business, we know that if I'm not leaving there with all of the information, including the deposits, stapled on the signed contract, that sale is not complete. If there's anything they have to come back to, there is a big risk that you will lose that job somewhere between now and the end of time when you stop following up, I guess. But it happens. It happens a lot. All right. And especially if you are skilled and you're getting one call close. Okay. So this whole system here, and again, the theme for our first quarter in Contractor AI is going to be one call close, meaning we are not wasting our time with the wrong people. We're going to homes and businesses and getting contracts signed in one call, not three, not four, not five, one. Okay, that's all that you can afford as a successful salesperson to spend with one prospect to close a deal. Okay, there are some minor exceptions to that rule. Obviously, if you're selling, $2-3 million contracts that have multiple more important steps, but still, even in there, if you're selling homes, you're getting the design agreement, right? If you're selling, remodeling, you're getting the budget agreement signed. You're getting a commitment and you're getting something signed, and you are moving forward with that customer. Okay. And then number 10 is actually buttoning up, right? So we want to ensure all the paperwork is complete, expectations are clear, reassure the customer and by reiterating the key benefits and next steps, leave on a positive note to build a long-term relationship. Again, I'm going to tell you, we've had this happen more than once. I've had it happen on Contractor AI where we get all the way to the major close, right? But something in the way that we closed up left some doubt because the buyer's remorse kicked in, right? All of a sudden they had, some changes, and that's where we again see these deals fall apart. And like I said, if you're doing sales, professionally and at a high level, you will get this from time to time. And most of the time, these are easy things to resolve. And it's really about, again, the simple psychology that every human being, including yourself, goes through. Anybody ever had buyer's remorse here? Anybody ever like bought something and just been like, man, and talked yourself out of it? Right? Mario, I'm looking at you, buddy. Right? So again, these are real things, right? So assume that they're going to be a part of every sale. Why not cool down with your customer and have, a recipe for success, no matter what kind of customer you're dealing with, right? A lay down sale, this is going to go even smoother, but most are not lay down sales. Most people, again, write off leads way too early. They get into this and they don't have a plan, and then they get stumped. All right. And then we just, we accept the L, and someone like me comes in and sells your job, right? Like I just eat your breakfast, or, a real salesperson comes in and does it, right? Enough of that. There is no difference. And, the way I'll put it to you is, how would you feel if you found out that, hey, you know what? Some of these guys aren't actually undercutting you like you think. They're actually charging more. They're charging more and beating you. How would that feel? All right. So the reality of it is that there are, cold-hearted, closers out there that do this day in and day out. And chances are, if you're coming up against them, you're not going to fare too well. I don't know if Jonathan's on this call. He's one of the cold hard closers. I would put him in that category. I mean, again, very skilled that way. And again, when you look at those situations, you don't want to be up against those guys without a plan. You don't want to be not go in even at your basic level, and even if you're not a fully seasoned pro, follow these steps. All right, build this into a presentation. All right, and your closing ratios will climb dramatically. Right. So, and again, over time, you become confident and very good at closing that one particular offer or deal. Okay. So, we're going to go kind of quickly through this, all right? But like I want to just emphasize a couple of key points of like introduction. Like again, coming back to the first impressions, appearance, behavior, tone, the entire appointment, all right? So important, all right? Your tonality, your body language, everything you do and act out in front of your customer says something about you, okay? Most people make decisions very quickly and early on in meeting you. Okay. So we only get that one opportunity. And, I've heard some staggering things that it's almost within the first 50 seconds that they've either decided whether they're going to do business with you or not based on the impression that they have. So, like, judge a book by its cover, it happens all the time. Okay. So, again, I give you this simple example. The guy that shows up with clean shoes, clean cut, doesn't have mustard all over his shirt from lunch. Like, those are things that people recognize your health, how fit you are, right? How well you've kept yourself. Are you well kept? Do you have well kept hair? Like those are things, those are indicators that are primal within our brain to recognize, right? Those represent things like safety, right? Can I trust this person? Trustworthiness, right? Now, again, it's not the be all end all. I mean, most people can still look at a salesperson and think that they're pretty slimy no matter what way they look. But these things give you that extra advantage. So, like simple things, having, proper identification, having branded clothing, making sure that, we're practicing proper etiquette, even things in terms of tonality. Okay. Tonality, I feel, is one of the hardest skills to nail in sales. All right. But understanding your tone, how you present yourself, and being able to, analyze a situation and change those things up, so you're making your customer feel very comfortable, right? So the whole thing here is we want to disarm them from the very beginning. Okay. You've heard me say this term probably a few times before, but disarming is really lowering, the customer's defense, right? It's making them feel comfortable, making them feel, that they can trust you, right? Building that trust, this solves objections, right? And it creates rapport. So, it sets the stage for a natural closing using, I'm going to bring it up. I call it the velvet hammer. This is the very basic starter level, technique that we use, right? And then, some techniques that we have to kind of keep in mind is like, and we'll say memorizing a script to handle your resistance confidently. And what I mean by this is not that you have to read a script word for word. I don't recommend that, but you have to know without a doubt. You have to have practiced your objection handles. You have to be in scenarios where somebody is responding to you, different personalities are responding to you. All right, to really learn the nuances between it, because what sounds good on paper sometimes never works out in the real world. All right. And again, when we write a script, we're really writing a framework, and we're memorizing those key points. All right. And it should be just like that. No matter the situation, you should be able to turn your objection around, especially if you're only selling one offer. All right. Using courtesy gestures like removing shoes and wearing booties. This is another area where I think a lot of contractors overlook. I would fire a sales rep if they if I found out they ever didn't remove their shoes at the door. Okay. Especially if you're dealing with Chinese culture, if you notice shoes are being stacked outside, all right, that should be your indicator not to walk in their house with your shoes. Stupid things, but I see it all the time. Different cultures have different rules. So most Chinese people, they don't bring shoes inside their house. They have slippers, right? So, again, I've seen sales rep refuse the slippers and be kicked out of the house. right? So again, have these things in mind, right? Know your market, know your audience, and even again, just simple gestures. Position yourself at the kitchen table for optimal engagement. Again, we can kind of go into layers of that. It's same thing if you're at a boardroom table. You want to get between the two people or three people that you're presenting to, so that you can make eye contact, so that you can express yourself, and so that the attention is not necessarily on you, but it's in a position where you have the most influence. Okay. So, some key phrases here. Thank you for inviting me to your home. May I come in? All right. We aim to provide some information and leave you with no obligation. Price valid for 30 days. Okay. Key takeaways: a strong introduction lowers defense and builds the foundation for a successful presentation. This is also opportunity. Those first sentences that you share with a new prospect or a new client, all right? Oftentimes, if you spent a little bit more time just getting that down, and really kind of put some thought into that and made it different than what everyone else is going to say, like, hi, I'm Edward from Joe Blow's company. I'm here to see blah, 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 like boring. Do better. Okay. Think better. Right. Having a statement that speaks to the customer and as well as disarming them, we'll call them credibility statements. That goes a long way, right? And some natural salespeople do this automatically, but if you are struggling in sales, this is the very first point and very first place you want to start as your introduction. It can be won or lost right there. Okay. So the needs analysis survey, this sets the stage again for the entire appointment. It prevents its wasted time identifying specific needs and goals up front, right? Again, if you don't have their specific goals and their needs and wants, and you haven't done those probing questions yet, how are you going to close the deal? How are you going to deal with an objection? All right. And again, I see this, very, very regularly where, people just go in and they think it's like 1951 where we just, go in and pitch. We just start spewing at the mouth and not listening. This is not effective. Okay. So keys to effective survey: ask open-ended questions, listen actively, but use the form method. Family, build personal connection and rapport. Occupation, adapt your approach based on their profession. Reaction, find common interests and strengthen the relationship. Motivation, uncover what drives their decision making. Okay. So my recommendation in this particular area is, do we start at, hey, how much budget do you have for this job? Is that an appropriate way to start a conversation with a prospective buyer? Yeah. So, hey, Frank, thanks for having me at your house. I just wanted to know up front, like, what are you looking to spend on this job? Okay. Right. Perfect. Did no work, just got right to business. Even for the most direct and, straight to the point people like me, that doesn't work. All right. And you're not going to get very much out of me other than, I'm gonna get you away from me as quickly as possible. And I'm sure you guys would do the same, right? Nothing creates more sales resistance than skipping all of these steps. Okay. So your techniques here is to make the survey feel conversational, not like an interrogation. Okay. So if you have a list of questions, allow those to be flexible. All right. And we use a list of questions, but we're not asking them in rapid recession. We're trying to have a conversation and we're letting the conversation flow, but we're ultimately leading back to the answers we're looking for, to make sure that we've asked the right questions first before we make a recommendation and try and solve the problem. We want to think like a doctor. Okay. And this is the best way I can explain it. Has anybody called their doctor, been like, hey, doc, got a sore toe. You know, can you help me fix it? And they just send you, high powered Percocets or some sort of medication. Does that happen? Or should it happen? No. All right. What do you have to do? You have to go see the doctor. They have to examine you. They have to go through steps to make sure. And then, there's a whole bunch of questions and consultations and, they're analyzing symptoms. And then and only then, if they think it's appropriate, they adjust the right amount of medication for you and send you home with Tylenol. Like, you know what I mean? That's the process that they follow. Now, do people trust doctors? For the most part, right? Maybe a good portion of Americans, some of Canadians don't, but I mean, ultimately at the end of the day in society, we generally trust doctors. How many of us actually can say without a shadow of a doubt that we trust salespeople? Right? Okay. So what would you rather be
Mom,
seen
no, I
as?
knew something to say.
Right? No, just give me a second here. What would you rather be seen as? Right? Are you the trusted consultant or are you the sleazy sales rep? All right. Well, there's, again, in any relationship, there's steps that you have to take to build trust, right? So again, gathering information allows you to actually tailor the presentation to address like hidden objections, right? The way that we actually do this survey allows us to set up the entire rest of the steps. So this is one of the most important things. And I'm happy to share examples. And if you're working with me, I've already probably given you your own examples. All right, but we have to make sure that we take as much time as necessary to actually do this in every part of the sale. So another area, and again, I told you I'd come back to this, is sort of the company story, right? And again, you're going to have everyone here is going to have a different story and have a different, approach with this. But in general, we want to kind of keep it, in order in a certain way. So the first thing is, industry challenges. So for us, we share the high dissatisfaction. We're number one on customer complaints. So roofers are seen as the number one cause of customer complaints. A lot of dissatisfaction and complaints to BBB as well. And again, I'm going to bring that up. I'm going to explain kind of, what the difference between a subcontractor and a contractor that has their own workforce, what they could look out for. Now, I'm really doing this as in a passive way. I'm going to share with them my insurance and I'm going to educate them on where they can ask and where they can get the insurance about anyone else that's bidding on the job for them. All right. Again, now I can come in and make a statement going, hey, I'm fully insured. All right. Or I could take another approach and say, hey, you know what, Mrs. Smith, I want to make sure that I'm able to, help you to make this decision, whether you work with me or not. I just want to share with you really quickly our insurance, our insurance coverage. In this coverage, it blah, blah, blah carries, 5 million. It's specifically to roofing. All right. And I want to ask you a real quick favor. Can you, if I were to show you exactly how to check and see if someone's actually using a real insurance card and it's fully, insured, by using a website, would you be open to that? Yeah, absolutely. Great. In my presentation, open it up. I show them how to, check somebody's insurance. And I'm like, I want you to just have this in mind when you're looking at, anybody else that may be bidding on your project. All right. I've just exchanged their credibility, but I've also educated them, and and I'm trying to get them disarmed, right? So again, when you're putting together your presentations, you want to think along those lines as well, right? We want to create some emotional impact, right? So use heartfelt about us. You can use videos, all right, of your team and your journey. If you've had any sort of challenges, any struggles, right? You may want to show, legacy videos and, information about your business. Maybe, your business started with grandpa back in 1901. Those are great stories to share. People are generally interested to a certain point. All right. Don't overdo this. I mean, we're talking about 2-3 minute, parts of your presentation. Again, leveraging proof and credibility. So using customer testimonial videos, excellent way to do it. Using your ratings, any associations you're involved with, right? And really showing them, not telling them, how where you are credible. All right. A lot of times I call these, your credibility statements. All right. And, the way you want to kind of think about this is, you always want to show somebody, you don't want to tell them. Okay. If you can avoid that and you're actually, providing proof of these things that you do, that's going to go a lot further than just, nonchalantly telling them that and just throwing statements at them. People in general will be questionable of that, right? So focusing on history, quality, reliability, comprehensive warranties, right? Rep 96% of contractors fail within 3 years. Choosing stability is crucial, right? So kind of bringing up some consequences of, why they could trust your company over a company that's maybe, newer or just started out, right? And again, closing with your confidence, right? Can you see can you see why thousands trust us? If we met your needs, have we earned your business? Okay. Oh, so now we get to the sort of the presentation side of the sales. I want to just take a quick break here. Does anybody have any questions so far in terms of what I've been showing? Does anybody have any, any key takeaways or anything they want me to clarify? No, we're all good. Okay. All right, let's keep rolling. So, really in the terms of the presentation, I'm gonna make this statement and this might be a slightly confusing for some, but the presentation should only be at about 15% of the entire sales call. If you're really good at what you do, all right, your time presenting should only be about 15% max of the time that you spend with that homeowner. Okay. So I wanted to make that emphasis there. So that's where it's really important to think about everything that you are saying and presenting, because you have a very small window of time where people can actually, properly consume your information. And that, when you do get to the point of presenting, it's got to be on point. All right. It's got to be, providing clarity and certainty, when you get into that presentation portion of the sales process. So, it's the key to a successful close. A masterful presentation ensures your customers say, I want it, I need it, I must have it. Okay. So how many of you guys can vividly remember the first time somebody was like super jazzed and super excited to like work with you and like no resistance, right? That first sale, or maybe you get a couple of those lay down sales, right? Great feeling, right? Where people are determined to work with you. All right. Generally, again, if you look back on those sales where you've actually sat down with someone and helped them to make a decision, all right, there was probably a lot of pieces of this that were in that, if not all. All right. And again, imagine yourself having, 50% of those customers be that way.
No, you're not having anything else
Nope.
here. You've had your bits.
Sorry. There we go. So once again, I want you to imagine this for yourself, because maybe some of you have struggled with sales, and I've heard the statement made lots of time. I'm just not a salesperson. I'm not this, I'm not that. I have the feel, I have the impression, and I've had the experience that, no matter how bad you are, and I don't take for granted how bad some contractors really are at this stuff. All right, the power of just improving 10 or 15% and the outcome of your client while you're going through the project, all right, while they're experiencing working with you, all right, is undescribable. It's how do we put even a number figure on that? And a lot of the problems that sort of haunt us into the projects, all right, I hate to say it, but they're a result of mistakes we made in the sales process, the mistakes we made in how we presented our offer, and the promises that we over promised on, and then it comes back to haunt us when we under deliver. Okay, now this isn't the case all the time, but I really want to challenge you to think about more than just making the sale. It is more than just making the sale. It's actually, again, it's the whole job. It's the whole relationship that you're trying to get clear and have, work very efficiently for you. All right. So the better and better you become at these things, the easier your jobs are actually going to be to produce. All right. We've all had those nightmare customers. We've all had those people that, from the gate, they just didn't trust us. Okay. I've had that experience, and it's terrible. All right. And again, could some of that stuff have been related to how, the sales process went, the things you maybe didn't do or didn't say, all right, that, they went into it on edge, or that they didn't have your trust from the beginning, right? So the formula for success here is, differentiation, all right? Highlight what sets your company and product apart, for the love of God. All right, guys, I really want you to get away from saying, everything about quality, and, getting into the technical details of, why you do quality. Like, no one cares. Everyone else is saying the same stuff. Like, again, don't be average. Don't go in, saying the things that every other, sales wannabe salesperson's come through and pitched at them. All right. An opportunity to differentiate yourself is like, really, again, identifying, first of all, what the customer's wants and needs are, and then tailoring, that presentation around those things, and, offering a different solution. Okay. A good example of this for guys using Company Cam. All right. Although it's becoming very popular, very few contractors actually use it. Right. So do you think your customers value transparency? Do you think they value, like, especially if somebody is, very critical of you and is, unsure of your credibility, right? By sharing that you work transparently and that you provide that for them, you know, it goes a long way. And while we're talking about it, what do they get to see? Oh, yeah, you're pulling out your company cam, and they get to see other projects and neighbors that you've worked with. Like, again, these are the kind of things that win deals. All right. These are the kind of things that allow you to close easily in one call, where they're totally bought in from you, from perfect stranger to, you know, new friend that's, you know, going to do a lifetime of business with you. Right. And ultimately, we always got to answer the WIIFM question. What's in it for me? Okay. Don't make these things about you. Don't make these things about the glory of your company and the color of your trucks. Okay. No one cares. All right. Nobody cares. And you're going to come off as a douche, right? Whether it be B2B or B2C, doesn't matter. You make everything about the customer and what's in it for them. All right. The value that you can bring them specifically. Okay. So again, this is where cookie cutter presentations fall to pieces. All right. Or cookie cutter sales processes fall to pieces, is that there is no customization. And I hate to say it, guys, but like, again, we're in a world, you know, where very few people listen anymore, right? We're so distracted, right? So again, if you're going in with, you know, mediocre stuff and you know, talking to people that are typically you got their attention for an hour or more, I mean, that's, you know, you should be closing on those opportunities. All right. Anybody that gave you an hour's worth of their time. All right. Price conditioning. Again, you know, this is another skill that you can, another level of your skill that you can add, but you should always be price conditioning. All right. The reason why is that if you are good at what you're doing, all right, and your business does bring all that value, you can't possibly be the cheapest guy on the street. All right. So there is going to be a level of sticker shock or price shock. All right. We want to reduce that by, again, making sure that we've conditioned our client for, you know, a more expensive purchase. So the best way I can kind of explain this to you is, you know, if you're selling cars, all right, and somebody comes in and they want to buy a Lamborghini, do they expect to pay a Honda Civic price? Nope, probably not, right? Vice versa, if you've got a Lamborghini, all right, and you're selling, you know, a Lamborghini to at a Honda Civic price, all right, are people going to be mistrusting of that? Are people going to wonder, you know, like what's going on with that? Right? How many of you guys would feel comfortable or not question if you were buying a Lamborghini at a Honda Civic price? Would you be worried that maybe that product's broken or it's been stolen? Of course you would, right? So again, you know, be clear about these things, understand and you know, understand your value and how to present it, and you know, have your price conditioning a part of your sales presentation, right? So you present your product as the ultimate solution to their problem. Using trial closes, and we're going to get into these, all right, to gain commitments throughout the presentation. So again, these are techniques you want to layer in as you get, you know, towards the end and during your presentation, right? And we're going to talk about kind of the questionings that we'd want to use, but we want to demonstrate exclusivity and involve the customer in experiencing the product. So again, well-executed presentation makes closing a natural conclusion, with affordability as the only remaining factor. Okay. Oh, I already did that slide. Okay. So once again, I just want to take a quick break here. We've got about 10 minutes left here. Is anybody have any questions before I start getting into some of these tactics and strategies? I'm going to go a little bit quicker through this. Is anybody really confused about anything that I've just made?
No, but if I may,
Mm-hmm.
I see it as supporting customer service moments as well.
Oh, everything, every layer of
Yeah.
it, right? So again, your sales is the heart of what you do, right? And again, the more you set that up for success, all right, the more you lead in that opportunity, all right, the easier it is to produce. It's easier to, you know, get referrals. Like it becomes a very trusted relationship. And again, there's a couple of different types of sales reps out there, as far as I'm concerned, is like, you know, the consultative sales rep that builds a lot of trust and rapport and builds a relationship and you know, truly values that customer and has their best interests at mind will always end up with long-term business. They always are flooded with more opportunity, and they can go into any situation, and they're also the best customer service person. And that's been my, and I specifically hire for these qualities. Like if I don't see that in someone, and I don't see that they have that trustworthiness and that they have the ability to truly put their customers' needs ahead of the, ahead of the offer. Like if our offer doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. Don't force that. Don't be dishonest. Okay. Be honest, be a leader. All right. We don't lead people into bad situations. And this is really, like, again, these are where those kind of qualities really stand out. And yes, they make every other operation better. All right. Again, you guys have all worked with untrusting customers or customers that, didn't value your business, and that's a drag, right? I think we talked about a situation earlier this week, where right away, and I always, when I hear things like that, it makes me wonder, how did he get this impression that he could do those kind of things to this business, right? Because I mean, besides being crazy, which we concluded at, right? The normal, person that you want to do business with, and the average Joe, all right, should have a great deal of respect for your business when they start to do business with you. You should be, if you've done your job right, all right, they should be, they should be excited about working with you, right? They should be relieved to have you there if you've done your job right in these steps. Okay. But trust is, again, and I'm going to go into this, like, trust is not going in and making statements to people. Trust is not, look how good I am. Look how, like, look at all these things I've done. Like, that doesn't build trust. Right. It's the opposite. Right. So this is where we have to really change up the way that we communicate, because we have to ask the right questions. All right. And this is the first step, right? We got to understand the customer first. We got to understand, does our solution actually meet their need? Okay. And you'll never find that out unless you ask the questions. Okay. So, why questions matter? It gets the prospect to open up and builds trust immediately. We keep using that word, but it's so fundamental for any relationship. Okay. It uncovers the needs and shifts their opinions to actionable facts. Okay. And research finding, customer pay attention to only 3 statements in a row. Okay. That's it. After 5 or 6 statements, attention drops completely. Gone. You've lost your trust. You've lost your opportunity to influence. So think about pitching to someone. Hi, I'm Jay from Jay Carter Roofing, and we are the best roofing contractor in, Simcoe, and here's why. And, we're BBB accredited, and we're this and we're that, and we did the neighbor's house. We did, like, all those are statements. Okay. So we want to make sure that, like, the statements are backed up with a point to it, but, like, ultimately that we're not putting the attention on ourselves. We're putting the spotlight on the customer. All right. We want them to feel really good and come out of that feeling relieved. If we do our job right, again, they have this problem. It's clearly a problem. They've taken action to call you, and they're trying to get it resolved. If you can go in and take that burden of all these decisions and all these fears and concerns off their plate and make it about them, all right, you win. Period. All right. You can build customers for life. And again, I've proven this over and over again. It doesn't matter which business. We're all in the people to people business. Every one of us. Okay. So, kind of coming back to this, about asking, questions that drive decisions, like key insights, right? Anything you say is seen as your opinion, but prospects' answers become their truth. So think about that, right? Anything you say is an opinion. Right? All these, pitching in general is things you're trying to tell your customer they need to do, or this or that. Like, all that's an opinion. Okay. And they may or not, validate that, but what they, answer back to you and how they respond, that's the truth. Right. Same thing as getting your customer to sell themselves. Like, when they can repeat back to you, why they want to work with your company and why they value and trust you. All right. That's the truth. That means that you've had, an opportunity to influence, and they genuinely believe that you can help them. Okay. Bingo. It's pretty, like, when you can get to that point with somebody, you have all their trust and all their, all the credibility. We just need to close that deal with them, right? We need to clean up the details and make it easier for them and put them on a journey with our company that's, going to maintain that, right? So again, as we hand these things off, right? So here's a formula for success. It's a simple one, right? We're going to ask a question. We're going to listen actively. All right. We're going to respond thoughtfully. Pretty simple, right? Ask a question, shut your mouth and listen, right? Respond thoughtfully. Think about the questions you ask. Be clear about them. Again, we can write these things down, but in general, like the questions are the same. We're just going to tailor them to the person in the situation. But they're always usually the same 8 to 12 questions that you require in order for you to help somebody make a decision. Okay. And we're going to start with open-ended questions. So they're designed to gather information when you don't know the answer, right? Useful for discovery and building rapport during appointments. Should never be used to close a deal, right? So we don't ask open-ended questions to try and close, right? So you think you want to go ahead with us, or like, what are you thinking? Is that a great way to close? Yeah, I'm thinking I need more time to think. I need more time to consult God and whoever else, right? So let's talk about an open-ended question. I didn't know this before working for this company. I've used this quite a bit in the past, not directly with this, but I didn't know this when I'm asking a question. Okay. So benefits of trust from open-ended questions, right? So the benefits of trust and open-ended questions, why they work, right? Encouraging the prospect to talk and share insights, shift the focus from the salesperson opinion to the customer's needs. It creates facts from their answers, which are harder to resist, right? Key takeaways, the open-ended questions help prospects to feel understood. All right. They create a conversational and engaging atmosphere, allow you to guide the discussion naturally towards your solution, right? Balance your talking time with the prospects. The more they talk, the more they engage and they become. Okay. Anybody have any questions about this now that we're talking about asking good questions? Okay. So I wanted to just share some quick examples with you. Like, so an open-ended question, when selecting an ideal contractor, what are your primary considerations? Right? What would make this a great experience? What would you want from your roof that your current roof isn't offering? Right? These are questions that make people slow down and think about the answers, right? Like, and think about it from your own perspective. If somebody's truly asking questions, that have to do with, diagnosing and helping you to, figure out what the problem and the solution is, you're gonna see that person is more credible than the person that's just, throwing information at you, hoping, like trying to sell you, right? And the best way, again, that I'll try and use this as an example, how many of you absolutely love to be sold to? Love it. Get that salesman at Best Buy or something else that's just, clearly trying to sell you something, right? Immediately your trust and your resistance is going up and you just want to get out of the room, right? So think about it the same way. Are you possibly doing that with your clients, right? And again, are we going through the proper steps to ask the right questions at the right time? Because not asking these questions during the closing is not the appropriate time, right? We shouldn't be using these kind of questions as we're closing. We should have those answers and be confident and, again, moving them towards, more assuming the sale, right? Personal connection. How did you meet each other? Often makes prospects smile. What do you do for a living? And, following that up with, what do you love most about that? Now, you'd be amazed. I've had 20-minute conversations with somebody about their career and what they do and why they love it. All right. And then we start, getting into more about the offer. But I've already built this rapport. I mean, he's told me a whole story about it. Right. So other things that we want to do, want to engage and make it fun. All right. Not sales isn't supposed to be a terrible, stuck up experience. Right. And some of the best sales reps that I know are capable of doing this, even if it's not in their personality type. All right. So again, getting realizing that a customer is uncomfortable in a situation and using some humor or using some sarcasm to, relate to them better. It's always, it doesn't have any negative or downsides to it. Well, I'll retract that. You need to know your humor. Some sarcasm will get you in trouble, and it has for me. So I'll take that back. But light humor, again, trying to make the presentation and get them engaged. The whole idea here is we want them to be engaged. All right. If someone's disengaged, they're not buying anything from you. All right. So humor relaxes the prospect, builds rapport, and creates trust. Laughter makes the experience memorable and engaging. Examples of humor. If you can guess within $500 of the total investment to get your metal roof done, I'll personally take you to any fine dining establishment with golden arches. I've said that a million times, right? So my father always said, if you want the fine oats, you have to pay for them. Or you can take them after they've been passed through the horse. I don't say that one, but you get what I'm saying, right? If you tell me no, I'll just go out to my car and cry. I've used this one a ton, right? Or again, you know, you can sprinkle these things in, you know, that fits your own personality, but try to use some humor, especially as we're getting into certain, you know, key places to use tension or release tension. Okay. Big one, tell stories. Anybody here a storyteller? Anybody, you know, see themselves as a storyteller at all? Maybe throw me a one in the chat if you are. Cool. So I feel that storytelling is a huge part of what we do as salespeople. The best salespeople that I've encountered and worked with are great storytellers. All right. And stories are data with soul. All right. Stories engage the emotional center of the brain, creating a lasting impact. All right. So decisions are made emotionally and justified logically. Stories help us to sway our emotions. So again, everything that we've been discussing and everything that, you know, sales is about getting somebody into the right side of their brain. Okay. It's removing the logical side of decision making. All right. If you are using a logical or technical sale, all right, meaning that you go and you explain technically why it is what you do and you're showing specs and everything else, you can almost guarantee that there is going to be no deal signed that day. All right. I can almost say it with certainty and you know, full commitment on that. In order for people to actually one call close with you, all right, they have to first become emotional. People, you know, again, they buy emotionally, right? In the right side of their brain. And in the right side of our brain, those are things that, you know, again, relate to emotions, art, like, you know, all the, you know, the important things in life. And again, imagination, you know, imagining their project being done, imagining, you know, a new washroom installed, imagining what it would look like all of those things are done on the right side of our brain. All right. The budget and technical details and, you know, number crunching and all those things are on the logical side of our brain. All right. On the left side of the brain. Okay. If we can't get people into that, you know, into that right side, and you haven't built trust and rapport, and there is going to be no deal signed, right? So stories are a quick way to get people feeling emotional. So here's a couple of different type of stories. Personal stories, so share a relatable experience to build trust. Example, a time you skimped out on service and regretted it. Stories about others, share a real example of a satisfied customer or a lesson you learned from others' mistakes, right? A competitor's product or story, highlight a competitor's shortfalls with bad mouthing. Use examples that validated your product's superiority, right? So you notice I didn't say bad mouth your competitor, right? We don't do that. You never do that in a sale, but you can, you know, again, use techniques that will allow you to get that customer to disqualify them. All right. Based on something you may know that they do or don't do for that matter. All right. So make stories descriptive and engaging for your prospects. Use visuals if you can. All right. Use storytelling to subtly guide a prospect towards a solution without direct selling. Okay. So again, you know, if you know that your customer is having, you know, major resistance to price and you know that that's going to be an objection, all right, you may sprinkle in a story of somebody that was, you know, really on the fence about buying the product and what their experience was and what they had to say after they had, you know, had made that purchase and how relieved they felt, right? You may even pull in a neighbor that you worked for and, oh yeah, Mrs. Smith down the road, like, you know, she was a really, you know, really hard ass. We weren't even sure if we could do business with her. You know, she made us come back 10.5 times. You know, she was absolutely sure that she was, you know, was never going to install this roof until XYZ happened, right? Like, again, using stories to kind of persuade and you know, entertain your prospect. Anybody here know what a tie down is? Anybody know what a tie down is in the sales process? See, Avash, you must know what a tie down is. Nope. Okay, so what are tie downs? It's a technique to turn a statement into a question, holding attention and gaining a small agreements, right? Helps to control your dialogue, keeps your customers engaged, and encourages participation, right? So what I just did was a tie down. Okay. So standard tie down, your roof definitely needs to be replaced. Wouldn't you agree? Right? Inverted tie down, wouldn't you agree you wanted to replace your roof just once instead of over and over, right? Like you'd agree with that, right? Yeah. Okay. Tag on tie down with a customer. Wow, that's an impressive roof. And it's impressive, isn't it? Right? And an unfinished statement, your new roof is only as strong as its weakest link. All right. Give me 1 second here, guys. Okay. So I'm not going to be able to get completely through this. I think on the next, our next school session, what we're going to do is deal with objection handles, because I could do a whole class just on that. In terms of the sales process and it's in terms of creating a framework for yourself. Can anybody share with me just one takeaway of how they could use this framework to improve their sales?
The two takeaways I have on this.
Sure.
One is asking the right questions to make sure you're
Mhm.
actually crafting the right solution for them, because you can make the decision too quick and that isn't really what they want and you've
Totally.
lost it. The other one, I think the building trust with the person is
Mhm.
really key, that they can really sense your genuine interest in them.
Mhm.
Like you're very engaged, and I, for myself, I think handling objections is
It's the art.
that's where I like to get some more skills.
Right. So, but in order to be able to handle an objection, here's the point that I make with this is like there are salespeople out there that have a bad reputation because they use high pressure and objection handling. Right.
Mm.
They don't ask the questions. They don't care about the prospect. They're there to get a sale. They're there to get a contract signed. And that's a whole different approach and different style. And some of you may be inadvertently putting off that impression with your clients because you didn't take the time, right? And then how many of these problems that you're having when you go to produce a job are a result of not asking the right questions, not getting the whole story, not understanding and getting your customer to open up, then directly leads to how that job is done, right? So again, these are critical skills for you at any level, customer service, anything. It's still within a framework. I could literally take this entire thing that I just showed you, all right, and then teach it to customer service reps that only deal with customer service. You would do the same steps. You would go through the same 10 step if you were truly, dealing with customer service as you would in your sales process, right? They're identical. I could take the same framework and guess what? I could do a hiring and recruiting, right? I could have an interview structure exactly how I'm saying here on this same framework. Right. So again, this isn't about having some magic words to say to someone that, persuades them and, gets them to buy something they don't need. This is a strategy and a framework for you guys to actually build good relationships. Right. And again, think about it as more than just a sale. Think of it as, the basis of what it is you offer. Right. If listening and understanding your customer is not a part of what you offer, then what do you offer? Right? Why would anyone buy your solution? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Anybody else have any sort of takeaway here that they can apply? No, Mario, I'm going to call on you. Or did he leave? He probably left. Yeah. So again, guys, we're going to do another part 2 to this where we'll go through actual closing techniques. Because like I said, I can do a whole call easily just on that part, right? How to, after we get through a presentation, how to, you know, take those certain no's and turn them into yes. All right. But like I said, start practicing these things. Start, you know, coming up with your open-ended, close-ended questions that are specific, and be very aware and craft good questions to ask, and just getting people to open up. And you can practice this with anyone, you know, have a discussion with your family members, or just start asking more questions. All right. Do less statement telling and, you know, making statements. Be curious about people, and you're going to develop the skill and get better and better at this. Right. And that's what's going to allow you to be a great closer, because all that information you've gathered now is how we're going to use to make a close. Okay. All right. If I don't see you guys, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. Bye for now.